Hello and welcome to Almost 30 Podcast.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. It's Lindsey Simsick.
And Krista Williams, and you are tuned into Almost 30. And if you've been here, maybe you've been here since 2016, baby.
And we are currently trying to attract more Gen Z listeners and readers. So
Lindsey's wearing...
I'm wearing something that looks like a sorbet that's absolutely see-through. I'm trying to cover my brow with my hair.
I saw that.
And Krista's wearing a candy necklace.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
We're doing the most.
Fully formed adults. You know what's so funny is right before we started this, we were talking about my dating life on the last intro. And I was like, bro, too old for this. I was like, you need to stop.
And are we too old to say bro? I don't know.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Bro's my new thing. I don't know what it is.
I'm letting her have the week of bro.
Yeah, I'm having a week of
I'll pull you back after a week.
Who did I say that to? Oh, we were talking to Jared, one of our friends' husbands. And I was like, hey, when I call you bro, how does that make you feel? And he's like, no, I like it. I was like, do you feel closer to me? He's like, yeah. I'm like, cool. I liked that. I was like, great. Because I felt like it puts men in their place.
Yeah, but I also think if you're talking to a guy that maybe you're flirting with, bro's not the, how do you feel about that? Not the vibe?
Yeah, I mean, there was a period in time where I was calling everybody girl. I was like, girl. I remember being with two men and they were like, hey, girl doesn't work for me.
Because I'm not a girl.
Yeah, they're like, hey, I'm not your gay bestie. I'm like, girl. I'm excited about this episode. Lindsey was just kind of socializing what this conversation is about today, which I'm really looking forward to sharing with you all. Here at Almost 30, we do spirituality, health and wellness. You know, we like to kind of push the envelope with the conversations that we have. We like to keep it really real and authentic. We have been doing that over the years. We also keep it very real and authentic in our book that's coming out, A Definitive Guide to a Life That You Love for this next decade and beyond.
Amazing. Yeah, it's called Almost 30. Can't wait for you to have it. You can pre-order it now at almost30.com/book.
Yeah.
But today on the pod, we have Neha Ruch. And she has been just making her rounds in like my sphere of motherhood recently with her book, The Power Pause. But I'm really excited because I feel like so many women in our community, whether they are wanting to eventually become parents or are currently parents, there is this interesting tug at us because we live at a time that we live in where, you know, there is both an internal desire and maybe an external pressure to pursue a career and become successful and climb the ladder, you know, metaphorical ladder, literal ladder. And then there's also this pull to be at home with your children and just like nurture the family in a way that feels good. And I absolutely feel that. But Neha wrote this book at a really, I think, potent time. And the subtitle of the book is How to Plan a Career Break After Kids and Come Back Stronger Than Ever. So this is for mothers or soon-to-be mothers who, you know, have that privilege to stay at home, you know, for a period of time, but also for people who want to dial down their work life for a period of time. And really, she guides us in an approach how to do that, how to have the conversation with your work. What is actually legally possible? You know, what options do you have? She has templates in the book and on her website for, you know, emails that you can send to your boss. She has conversation templates just so you can practice, because it is so much about the communication with your place of work. And then she also speaks to just kind of this like reluctance we have to be a stay-at-home mom for a period of time or maybe, you know, forever. And where that comes from.
Where does it come from?
So it can come from a few places. You know, it's often connected to what we saw growing up and what the thoughts and feelings were around that. So for example, you know, if you had my mom was a stay-at-home mom, which she was. How did my dad view that? How did our family at large view that? Did she have a community of moms around her? Was she like very, you know, kind of alone in that? As children, we're so impressionable, you know, we're feeling everything. And so we can really kind of pick up on that at an early age, and it manifests later in life into how we feel about staying at home. And then we're also influenced by what's happening around us currently.
Yeah.
So are all our friends working moms who just, work their tails off and like see their kids in the morning and at night. And that's kind of what we're seeing and what we think is normal. Um, did we grow up in an era where it was like girl boss, go, 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 and we didn't really see an example of the possibility of balance, of, staying at home more for a period of time. And we also talk about just how important it is, in those especially first 3 years of life, why it's so important to be with your children. And
Doesn't Gabor Mate say if you get the first 3 years right, you're set up for
yeah,
success with children?
yeah,
Which is funny because I think a lot of the narrative when I was growing up was like, they're babies.
oh, 100%.
It
I
was
mean, I still hear that
dismissive.
from the older generation, whether it's like, my mother-in-law or the like. It's like, oh, they're kids. They're not going to remember. I'm like, yeah. Let me send you a few Instagram videos.
I know,
Gabor Mate
honestly.
speaking. I'm
It's
like,
like Dr. TikTok told me.
it's just crazy.
This matters to children.
It is so formative neurologically, emotionally. I mean, that is when the emotional brain is forming really intensely until 6. It's still developing, obviously, throughout the teens and early adulthood, but like really, really like kind of locking in until 6. And that's why you see like tantrums and things like that. And just kind of like that emotional, like doesn't make sense, like why they're having a moment. But to have a parent be there as like basically having you as like their nervous system that they can borrow from, their peace that they can borrow from, that co-regulation is just so, so important. So she really walks us through step by step. There, we start with the permission to pause, kind of what that takes, and what that really means. And then once you do have like, all the steps to like actually take the pause, do the tactical things at work, et cetera, talk to your partner, what does that look like? Having those conversations. And then you find yourself in this new season of whether it's like, really less work or staying at home fully. It's like, how do you find your footing? How do you redefine success for yourself? How do you allow yourself to get help without guilt? Because now that you're staying at home or working less, there is something that I think a lot of moms or parents feel where they're like, I can't get help now. I decided to stay at home. But there's such a power in being able to ask for help, whether it's family or a nanny or babysitters or a mother's helper, like that actually help you to be a better parent and actually be more present. Um, and then part 3 was just, how do we grow and learn throughout this pause? How do we use it as like a purposeful time? How do we come back to our working life better than ever? How do we explore other creative avenues and forms of expression that might inform like the next iteration of our career, So it was really, really fascinating. I just think she's, an incredible wealth of knowledge for anyone moving through this season of their life. She had her own career pause that she talked about. She's also the founder of Mother Untitled, which has been around for a while. And this is just a place for mothers who, find themselves kind of in that in between of like, I'm a mom, but I'm a professional, but like, what does that even mean?
Wow.
So yeah, it was really great.
Yeah, I think for any women that want to have children, that have had children, this is so helpful to even look at yourself and how you're relating to motherhood, how you're relating to your career, sort of the transitions. Because what I've noticed is that it's hard for women to be, it's like if they're not with their child, they want to be. If they're with their child, they feel like they have to be at work. It's like being where you are is very challenging. You know what I mean? And in embracing each moment, because a lot of women, they feel like they have to work, or a lot of women have to earn money. So there's that guilt of like that, you know what I mean? It's just so much.
Yes, there was, and we got really tactical about kind of that thing where, maybe there is this season where you discuss with your partner, like, hey, for the next 3 years, I'm going to really downshift in my career.
Cool.
What does that look like? How can we budget?
That's a good one.
Like kind of the unsexy aspects of like the planning, but it's like then everyone feels better. Everyone feels like, okay, so like, I feel good you being home with the kids or like just really pouring into that. But let's make sure that we are both in agreement that you doing that is actually a part of my success too. So this is our income.
Yeah.
It's not just the other partner who's working full time, their income and contribution. The mother's contribution is part of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I guess I just am like noticing, I'm like, am I just like a trad wife now? Because I'm like, shouldn't the man be able to, this is what's hard is, you know, they have that perception. I'm like, the man should be able to cover everything for the family.
It's
But
just not
that's
possible for everyone. And I think it depends on where you live.
And in America, it's like you need dual income households. Like it's just crazy, you know, the amount that you need both people to be working. Like it just is. It's heartbreaking overall, but like there's that old kind of narrative and perception that it should just be able to be happening with one person, and it's not.
And I'm working on like pulling myself out of that belief that like, fuck, what am I contributing? I'm contributing so fucking. And like Sean reminds me, he's like, I couldn't do what I do without you. Like that, it's just like not possible. And I forget that. But because I'm not like, you know, bringing an equal to him, I'm kind of like, oh man, but I really had to work on, I'm much better now, but like I really had to work that and see where that comes from. And yeah, it's real.
I wonder if I'll be able to receive that. I'm not sure.
Say more.
Of my man, if he's taking care of our financials. I don't know.
Well, is there a part of you that does? I think you love to work when you love what you're doing.
Yeah. I think I will be able to receive that and be like, yo, this is like how it's supposed to be. I definitely think I'll work because I really love what I do. I do wonder how it would transform my work. I would still do what I do. I just.
Maybe not as much. It would be like a different quantity.
Yeah. Yeah. I love what I do. So I'm not even quite sure.
Yeah, totally. But I think it's just the point of like being in conversation about it.
For sure.
You know?
Yeah. I think this is powerful. I love the tactical resources. I think for all women, I think this type of thought is supportive. I think for people that have friends that have children, if people don't want to have children, kind of understanding what's going on, what's happening in the marketplace and in the world, I think is great.
So the book is The Power Pause, and you can find more of those resources at motheruntitled.com. Thank you, Neha. It was incredible to meet you in person. And thank you all for listening. Thanks for pre-ordering our new book, everybody. almost30.com/book. We're so proud of our sweet baby coming out into the world soon. And I am so excited for this to be on your bedside table for those navigating their late 20s and really anyone navigating an intense period of change, which by the way happens all throughout our lives.
Yes, this is really about how you relate to change. We have our little blurbs from the likes of Jay Shetty, from Shalene Ayana, from Lala Delia, from Jill Winterstein, Gabby Bernstein, Jenna Kutcher.
Our dear friends are
our
just
dear friends.
The best.
This is like so great. And it is such a great book. So Almost 30, a definitive guide to a life you love for the next decade and beyond. Almost30.com/book is where you can get it. There's a bunch of goodies that you get as well when you pre-order. And again, it's $30 for an investment for changing your perspective on change in your life.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you on the other side. Enjoy this one.
Love you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Have you noticed that fees are everywhere lately? Like you book a weekend rental and you have a cleaning fee. Buy concert tickets, there's a processing fee no one can explain. Even ordering delivery comes with a service charge. It's like we're getting nickel and dime just for living life. It's very annoying. And those fees feel especially frustrating when money's tight. That's why I love Chime. So with Chime, there are no monthly fees, no overdraft fees, and no minimum balance fees. It's basically banking that doesn't punish you for being a human trying to get ahead. Personally, I've had times where I was trying to stick to a budget and surprise bank fees totally threw me off. Chime gives me peace of mind. I know what's coming in, what's going out, and I'm not getting charged for just using my money. Banking shouldn't cost you money. And with Chime, it doesn't. Open your account in 2 minutes at chime.com/almost30. That's chime.com/almost30.
Chime is a financial technology company, not a bank. Banking services and debit card provided by the Bancorp Bank N.A. or Stride Bank N.A. Members FDIC. Spot and eligibility requirements and overdraft limits apply. Timing depends on submission of payment file. Fees apply at out-of-network ATMs. Bank ranking and number of ATMs according to U.S. News and World Report 2023. Chime checking account required.
Okay, I've always been someone who loves the idea of adventure. Like, give me a new trail to run or a random side street to wander down, and I'm totally in. But as a mom, I've also realized the real adventure is just getting out the door with enough energy to keep up with the day. And that's where having a go-to nourishing routine honestly has saved me. Enter Kachava, aka my not so secret weapon. It's a whole body meal shake that somehow manages to be packed with 85 plus superfoods and still tastes really good. I'm a chocolate girl though through and through, but sometimes I'll do the vanilla with almond milk or frozen banana and a little cinnamon. And it's like a fancy smoothie from a cafe without the $16 price tag, if you know what I mean. But what sold me, it's not just protein, though it has 25 grams of clean plant-based protein. It's also got fiber, adaptogens like maca, superfoods like sacha inchi, and even ingredients like goji berry and chia that I used to buy separately and never use, let's be honest. So I'm so happy they're in there. They're just all mixed in. I usually whip my own up with a quick breakfast or post-workout shake, and it actually fills me up without that weird powdery aftertaste I've had with other drinks. And I know you know what I mean. I feel focused, satisfied, and like I actually gave my body something it wants to say thank you for. So if you're playing curious but not fully vegan, no worries. Kachava is for everyone. Plus, they've got a love it guarantee, so it's risk-free to try. But I have a feeling you're going to get hooked. Fuel your day with Kachava. Go to kachava.com and use code almost30 for 15% off your next order. That's KACHAVA.com. Code almost30 for 15% off.
Okay, well, I am thrilled that you're here. I feel many things. I feel really seen by your work and by this book in particular, The Power Pause. I am a new mom, relatively speaking, and I haven't been able to put into words the feeling that I've been feeling around my identity changing and, feeling that pull to, quote, just be a mom, for this season of my life. And what does that mean? And what would I have to do to make that happen? And, what will people think? So I know I'm not alone in that. I know a lot of people in our community are moms or people who want to be moms and are grappling with this question. So I'm so excited to get into it with you.
Thank you.
I would love to start with your story because I know that your work over the last 10 plus years has been inspired by your own experience. So would love to hear your story.
I mean, your experience mirrors mine where, but if I were to go back, which I've recently started doing, I immigrated to this country when I was 3 and I moved to an all-white town outside of Boston, which is only relevant because I was always trying to fit. And by the way, I have my closest, I'm going on a girls trip next month and it's with 8 of my closest friends who are from that town. So it wasn't about the town, but I was always looking for belonging. I ended up taking a year off between high school and college before gap years were a thing. And I learned something, which is when you part with the path and you part with the noise and other people's opinions and what they want, you can really tune into what's true to you. I came back and what I ended up finding was that I was really interested in my career. And I found a lot of belonging then in my 20s and early 30s in that work. I got lucky. I started in a digital strategy role when Twitter wasn't even there, right?
Wow.
So yeah. And mom blogs were nascent and they were like, you're 22, you should take this beat. And because of that, I was lucky to sort of grow in that and found myself in rooms that I was inspired by and ended up going to business school. And I'll explain why this is relevant. I went to business school because it was described to me as a train stop to surround yourself with smart people and figure out what comes next. I came out and I sort of took the thing that I thought on paper was my dream job, running brand at a tech company actually just around the corner from here. And then I had my first son. And when I was with him in the wee hours of the night, yes, I had like a gross overproduction issue. So I was spraying milk everywhere. I'd reached the ends of the internet. I was like on Lori Laughlin's daughter's Instagram, and yet I felt at peace and I felt belonging.
Yeah.
For the first time, I felt like, oh, I don't have to try so hard. I can just be myself. And the reason I share that is because I did not choose. I would eventually make the choice to downshift my career first. So part-time, 2 days a week, and then eventually I would pause. I did not choose because I thought it was a better outcome for him. There's so much research, specifically Stuart Friedman's research, how your careers impact your children. that whether you work out of the home or in the home or exist in between, there are equally happy and healthy and ambitious outcomes for your children. I chose because I wanted to see this new version of myself. I was curious about who I would be, what this day-to-day looked like. I was really interested.
Yeah.
And yet when I decided to downshift, even just going part-time, like announcing that I was taking my foot off the gas, I started hearing, are you giving up? Did you waste that spot at Stanford for business school? Are you going to be bored all day? And meanwhile, full circle, I was sitting here thinking, oh no, this is just a train stop to surround myself with smart people and think. And I was meeting so many incredible women, similar to myself, had clocked in a decade in their career, were, trusted that this was not a career ender. But all of them were on the same unwelcome commentary. And I realized, oh, this is the height of the lean in movement, the height of the girl boss era.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
And I can't find, there's so much great content about the traditional working parent, but there's something that's making ambitious women who are choosing to pause or shift feel counted out. And that was the beginning of this.
Yeah. I want to touch on just that feeling of belonging, because I had a similar experience and still have that. And there's a part of my mind that wants to talk me out of it in a weird way, where I'm like, this feels so amazing. How simple and yet complex, how just natural. I feel like I had been like kind of trying for so long in other things that I did, even though I had success and have success, like this just felt, and you mentioned this, it felt like I was learning new again, and that felt good. Which, I don't think we think about. We think about like kind of this linear trajectory of like, okay, we're in school, and then we have the job, and then we like progress success-wise. But we never think about going back to kind of this beginner's mindset and how good that feels and how much the brain loves that and how much like just the human spirit loves that. So did you ever have a moment where you were intimidated by that, like just kind of starting from scratch beginning vibe that was happening as a new mom? Did you ever have that looming of like, if I pause or downshift my career, am I going to be missing out on, years of relationship building and, kind of going up the corporate ladder that would be beneficial to me? Because I think a lot of women feel that fear.
Yeah. I think that's sort of the foundational block that women feel when they're making any career change. And your work is so much on transition, and that transitions, no matter what, are difficult, right? And I think when you're stepping into motherhood, as it is, I think there's a lot around, am I going to lose myself? That's been the narrative. And I often offer, you might shed parts of yourself, right? But you're just like, you change from the age of 5 to 10 to 10 to 50 and 15 to 30, right? Like you're going to change, and it's going to lead you to the next version of yourself. And I think I was ready for that next version. Yeah. I was itching for it. Not everyone is. And I want to also share that I think I was already getting disenchanted with my work at the time. And so I was eager to learn, open up into something new. And I wanted that to reset. And so I came to that easily. I think what I struggled with was that our careers and what we do for a living have come to stand in for our ambition, our feminism. When you were saying to me just now that sometimes you try and talk yourself out of that piece, I think it's because we associate motherhood with martyrdom. We associate it with tradition. We have dumbed down parenthood in this culture for so long to diapers and laundry and like simplicity, and we make that feel not rich enough. Whereas like, and you will continue to know this in your parenting journey, that the like real work of parenthood is the sort of behind the scenes studying of their brain's growing, figuring out new rhythms in your home, communications with your partner, communications with your village to figure out, well, how do I create a family and a household that thrives when there's illness? How do I create patience in myself? Or when there's sleepless nights, what are the strategies? And that becomes the real work of parenthood, right? Then, that obviously develops as kids grow and the problems become a little bit more, social dynamics and diagnoses. And so, that level of advocacy, interest, research, planning, that part
Agility.
has been diminished for so long. So instead, we think of, well, the homemaker, and that association has been so flawed in this culture. And when I was facing the pushback, I struggled a lot with, I have derived so much value from what other people think of me. And I'm hearing loud and clear that what they think is I'm giving up when really I'm not. And that tension was hard. And it's why the first part of that first chapter is about how do we rewrite ambition and feminism? Because I knew deeply that this did not make me feel like I was taking a step back. But I had to reconcile that with everyone else's perception.
Did everyone else catch up?
I think they're catching up now.
Yeah.
Right? Like real time. But it becomes a superpower in motherhood, right? Like this constant flexing of having to make choices that feel right for you and your child and your family that not everyone's on board with, whether it's co-sleeping or sleep training, breastfeeding or bottle feeding, private school or public school, nanny or at home. So when you're choosing to pause or return to work, or you're gonna get pushback because everyone is making sense of their own choices. And when you realize that, it becomes really freeing, and it becomes, like I said, a superpower, a perspective of how can I make the right choice for right now and trust myself along the way. But, a lot of that chapter is about rewriting and investigating, where did our ideas of ambition and feminism come from? Why do they no longer apply? Because they didn't feel like I did not feel like I or the women I was meeting, or the women you're meeting, matched the caricature that they were being fed.
Can you describe that caricature?
Yeah. So in our research, we commissioned a survey called American Mothers on Pause. The reason I did wanted the sort of formal research is because I know that career pause, I think motherhood often gets written off, right?
Yes.
And so you need sort of the gravitas of that. And so we commissioned a survey across census data of 1,200 at-home parents and then 1,000 members of the general population. We asked them, what do you think of as a stay-at-home mom? And the most common response was a June Cleaver, which is a character from the 1950s sitcom Leave It to Beaver, who is apron-clad and in like total service to her family. If you ask them who they think of as a working mother, they would say, who did they say? Michelle Obama, Sheryl Sandberg, and Beyonce. That is like a pretty immense power chasm. And that is the fear. That is the fear when you are sitting there enjoying the simplicity and the joy of, you're like, but I'm not June Cleaver, right? And so now think about, where did that come from? And it was that the 1970s, it was this sort of unique time where it was second wave feminism, right? Which was a gift, obviously. We showed and proved our capacity in the workforce. But to do that, we said anyone else who was like doing any care work was sort of defending tradition at home. And at the so then we created this power chasm, the women who worked out of the home, the women in the home. Women who worked out of the home continued to be in the news, right? Like the media continued to chronicle that. So that became the sort of power woman, like Diane Keaton from Baby Boom. Meanwhile, in the 1970s, we started to see the boom of television. And so June Cleaver was beaming into people's living rooms, and that became the portrait of the at-home parent. But she wasn't depicted in the media. So we never updated that perception until now. And you're looking at your audience, my audience, the both of us, and before having children, right? The average age of having children is 30, and that skews older on the coast, meaning you have had a lot of education and work experience to draw from. Dads are spending 3 times the amount of time with their kids than any generation before. So we're not serving them cocktails at the end of the day, right? And we have access to digital tools and technology, and entrepreneurship is booming and freelance is booming. And so there's this sort of vast gray area in between the black and white ideas of stay at home and working. And so yes, that caricature still haunted us when I made that choice. And I think the work that we're doing is trying to update that narrative and just create a much more fluid one.
Mm-hmm. Did you find in your research anything connected to like our own moms and how that impacts like the way that we see motherhood?
You know, we didn't even ask about our own experiences with mothers. I've seen both anecdotally, women who had mothers who worked around the clock out of the home and wanted something different, and women for whom that modeled sort of what success looked like, and then women like myself whose mother did sort of both. She paused. She was a zoology major. And then she paused when we immigrated to the country, but she was my dad's complete counterpart. So I never saw it as anything less than dignified. And then when I was 11, but she was always volunteering. She would take the school bus with me and be the librarian, the ESL teacher. And when I was 11, she went back to work part-time, right? So, I think that I had because of that, I had sort of reverence for that role, but also confidence that I could be anything, mother, worker, and I think I had that fluidity modeled for me. Ironically, she was one of the biggest critics of my decision because she felt really nervous for me that I was putting myself in a situation that I would regret one day. And she's been one of my favorite minds to have changed on that.
Yeah, I know our parents, it's so funny when our parents kind of show that resistance because it says so much about kind of where they're coming from and feeling and how they felt perhaps about their own experience rather than like really the fear of like, this is going to ruin everything. You know, it's like if they really dug into that fear, I can imagine, because I think my dad was like this for me. He's like, career first, and then you can find your person and settle down, whatever. I think it said so much about like how he viewed my mom, and giving up things. And, it was less about me and more about kind of his past experience.
Dynamic.
Yeah.
Which is often how we perceive and judge the world.
Of course.
And that has been one of my, as women who I think often are conditioned to seek approval. I don't want to project that onto other people, but I certainly was one. I think when you realize that judgment and criticism often stems from people making sense of their own choices.
Yes.
And it really makes it easier to hold it as less of a personal attack and less grounded in fact or reality.
Totally. So for people who do want to downshift or are considering downshifting in their career or taking the full pause, I would love to get tactical in how we set ourselves up to feel really confident, to not feel like fear or stress around finances or, kind of a total collapse in career trajectory. What did you do and what do you guide people to do in order to set themselves up?
Yeah. I think once you move past I'm not giving up my ambition, I'm not giving up my feminism, all of my skills are going with me. This is one chapter. Ambition is defined as the determination to do things, right? I'm going to do a great number of things over the course of my life. I'm going to let myself shift for right now. I think right now is a really magical word. I think the very next thing you're going to do, and ideally it's 6 months before you're pausing in the case of a 2-parent household, is even if this is a financial no-brainer for your family, you and your partner are going to sit down and have money meetings. And, to my husband's credit, we had been doing this before kids. We had sort of an annual financial meeting together where he was treating our home like literally an organization.
Yeah.
Where this is the money in, this is the money out, these are the things we care about, this is how we're going to assign budgets accordingly. And what that did was it allowed us room. It was very intimidating for me because I was like, you're going to look at my taxi and Uber habit.
Totally.
This is terrible.
I know.
But, when we decided together, and I was the one to voice it first, like, I want flexibility. I want to go part-time. 2 things happened. It let us try the income shift, right? So I often encourage women, what are you optimizing for in the beginning? Like, do you want to test within the existing role? Is part-time available to you? Is fractional available? I think those 2 days allowed us to test the income, and it allowed me to see like, how would I feel in the home on that day-to-day? But from a financial perspective, we were able to have a really clear conversation about how would our home operate we were sort of able to model it out,
Sure.
but we were also able to have a conversation about, does he see the contribution I'm going to be making
Yeah. This
if
is
I
important.
initially downshift or pause? Meaning he was building a tech company at the time.
Mm-hmm.
It was a venture funded tech company, which is relevant only because at a drop of a hat, he would have to get on a flight, right? And he was constantly on the road. The reason he could book those trips without even thinking was because there was a security net at home,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, totally.
I was managing most of the care and I was electing to be that security net. But because of that, I was creating an ability for him to single task in the workforce. That ability made us an interdependent organization. I think one of the biggest fears is that we're going to become financially dependent. And I love to offer people this moment that you are going to have this financial conversation and you're also going to make sure that your partner is really on board with, we are an interdependent organization. Because then it flips the script that household income is shared. And then when you're budgeting, you're also budgeting for your own. I see too many women say, well, I'm going to cut back on clothing or my hair. I'm going to cut my own hair. Like I had one person say they were cutting their own hair. And I was like, don't cut your own hair, unless you're 5 or trained. And so, but how can we make sure that we feel empowered and financially dignified? It starts with making sure that you feel safe and secure and respected in your contribution. There are different ways you can try budgeting. If this is not a financial no-brainer, I've heard of couples who moved. It was a big change for them, but they valued this together. It was a joint decision, and they said, we're going to move from the Bay Area to Virginia to make this happen. I've seen other couples say, you know what, it's not like we're going to just cut the line item of travel for a couple of years. The other piece is this isn't one and done. You're ideally coming back over and over, and it helps reduce the strain on the relationship too, so that the partner working out of the home doesn't feel like they're trapped in this. I do want to call out because I think your listeners are younger, and so we have this amazing capacity to help shape the way they have conversations. So often, career pauses have been written off as a luxury for family life. Like stay-at-home motherhood was considered a luxury. And the reason why that's dangerous is because it's not true. 60% of women pausing right now are pausing because of the cost of childcare. 1 in 3 feel forced. And when we associate one side with luxury, we deem it less worthy of support. And we'll talk about support later, but it's a really important reframe to enter that financial conversation with.
Yeah, I think the conversation is so important. And do you find that there are certain ways in which you can articulate this shift to your partner that helps them to, because I want to get a little granular because I think people get really intimidated by the conversation. There is this subconscious feeling of like guilt of like, I should be doing more. Well, maybe I can, I'll earn a little money doing this. And, it's like kind of just like shifting and instead of standing in the confidence of what my contribution is and why that's valuable. You articulated it so well, but was there something that you said to your husband or you've heard women say that's just really powerful in like shifting that for the partner? Because they also have their own stories.
They have their own stories, so I'll say a couple of things. I think ideally this isn't a conversation you're having in your own head.
Yes.
You're having it together. It's ideally not a passing conversation you're having in the car or getting like a coffee. It's a sit down, organized dialogue. And there's tons of scripts and practices in that chapter. Each chapter has practices and scripts because I do think language is so important. But a couple of things to make note of is this starts with a values conversation. What do we imagine for this year? What do we need? Are we optimizing for less stress in the home, right? If a couple is saying we're optimizing for less stress, we want we're both running, then if someone is making a shift, it's to help the entire household, right? I think there's also this other piece around safety, being able to tune in if the partner is not on board, right?
Mm-hmm.
And call it out and say, maybe this is an ongoing conversation, and let's see different permutations, staying open to, well, what might make it work, right? If why are we choosing to pause? Is it because the very valid want to have more time with our kids, right? Is it for less stress in the home? Is it to offset the cost of childcare? Deciding together what those reasons are. But if the other partner is still not on board with, we together are making this decision, and it still feels one-sided, or they are not on board with the interdependent organization, if they're still not on board, continue to have the dialogue. Why? Is it because of their mindsets around money and they're worried about savings? And how might you continue to iterate on that? How might you bring in help like a financial planner or a relationships therapist? I think the piece around them just not being on board with the interdependence is much scarier. And so there I would say, if they're not on board, two things. One, this is not the time to pause. I don't think women should put themselves in that position unless they feel protected and secure. If there's a gut instinct that says they are not, this would either be a time to maybe stay connected to part-time fractional work so you have some income available, or consider a post-nup agreement. We have a great template on the site that we did with Fair Play.
Love that.
Because I think we always think of post-nups or prenups as like a bet against our marriage, when in reality, especially in that case where there's something that you're not clear on and someone's going to make a shift that's bold, you want to feel secure, just like you would if you were stepping into an organization or a client, right?
Sure.
We contract everything. Why not put that into place? If you haven't yet considered Fair Play, Fair Play was run by a colleague of mine, Eve Rodsky. We share a publisher. It's a great way to break down the tasks that actually go into caring for a home. And I think when we sort of put it out on the table, then there's a way in which to quantify, oh, this is how much this would cost. And it's not just the cost of the babysitter. It's like the family admin, the sitting on the phone with the insurance company, the planning and research for schools. All of that stuff is sort of laid out right there.
Okay, I don't know about you moms out there, but ever since becoming a mom, my health routine has needed to be effortless. And maybe you're not a mom, but maybe you've started a new career and it is demanding a lot of you, and things just need to flow and be easy outside of work. And I personally don't have time for 10-step anything, but I still want to feel energized, clear, strong, so I can show up as a mom that I'm proud of, a business partner that I'm proud of, a wife that I'm proud of. And that's where Symbiotica comes in. Their supplements have seriously changed the game for me. I have been on my Symbiotica game for years now. One of my current favorites is their liquid colostrum. It is so yummy. It supports my gut, my skin, and even my immune system. And it tastes like vanilla sea salt, and it is delicious. It makes it really easy to take. The body loves the bioavailability of this form. And so I highly recommend. I'm also obsessed with their magnesium L-threonate. This helps me focus when I'm working and really unwind when it's time to sleep. Plus, it uses liposomal delivery, which means your body absorbs it faster, like I said. And the taste is yummy as well. I get creative with this. I put it in a smoothie. Sometimes I'll put it on top of yogurt, or I'll just toss it right in my mouth. Finally, I wanted to mention the glutathione. I mean, this is incredible for glowing skin, better digestion. This is like a master antioxidant. I notice the difference within days. So I'm excited for you to try. All of their ingredients are incredibly clean. Their packaging is beautiful. And with their monthly delivery, it shows up at my door. I don't have to think about it. No brain power required, which is nice. So if you want to feel better, physically for sure, but also not overcomplicate things, go to symbiotica.com/almost30. That's symbiotika.com/almost30 for 20% off plus free shipping. That's symbiotica.com/almost30. You're going to love it. Okay, what if I told you that you can and should actually build muscle safely during pregnancy? And it could even make your delivery and recovery easier. I can tell you that from my own experience. Being pregnant can feel like you're in uncharted territory. I remember it very well. Lots of unknowns, lots of anxieties, and especially when it comes to working out. That's why Evlo's new groundbreaking prenatal program is so powerful. I am so excited to do this program when I get pregnant for the second time. This wasn't around when I was pregnant the first time, but it's really incredible. The program was created by Dr. Shannon Ritchie, a doctor of physical therapy and Evlo's founder and CEO, while she was pregnant. Yeah, the classes are literally taught by Dr. Shannon week by week as she goes through the exact stage of pregnancy you're in. It's really a first of its kind program. And I really wish, again, I had this during my first pregnancy, a strength training program that actually was created for pregnant women. These aren't fluff workouts. They're science-backed, joint-safe, and truly effective for maintaining and even building strength through all 3 trimesters without breaking your body down. We're talking less risk of gestational diabetes, stronger pelvic floors, more energy, and an easier postpartum recovery. The Evlo app will ask for your due date, populate your classes from there, and include resources from pelvic floor physical therapists, nutrition guidance from registered dietitians, mini classes, cardio, and more. All you have to do is press play. If you're ready to train smart, trust your body, and feel strong during your pregnancy, go check it out. You can try it for free for 6 weeks using code ALMOST30TRIAL, ALMOST30 trial at evlofitness.com. That's Evlo Fitness, EVLO fitness.com. Your body and your baby will thank you.
You're having in your own head.
Yes.
You're having it together. Is ideally not a passing conversation you're having in the car or getting like a coffee. It's a sit down, organized dialogue. And there's tons of scripts and practices in that chapter. Each chapter has practices and scripts because I do think language is so important. But a couple of things to make note of is this starts with a values conversation. What do we imagine for this year? What do we need? Are we optimizing for less stress in the home, right? If a couple is saying, we're optimizing for less stress, we want the, we're both running, then if someone is making a shift, it's to help the entire household, right? I think there's also this other piece around safety, being able to tune in if the partner is not on board, right? And call it out and say, maybe this is an ongoing conversation and let's see different permutations, staying open to, well, what might make it work, right? If why are we choosing to pause? Is it because the very valid want to have more time with our kids, right? Is it for less stress in the home? Is it to offset the cost of childcare? Deciding together what those reasons are. But if the other partner is still not on board with we together are making this decision and it still feels one-sided, or they are not on board with the interdependent organization, if they're still not on board, continue to have the dialogue. Why? Is it because of their mindsets around money and they're worried about savings? And how might you continue to iterate on that? How might you bring in help like a financial planner or a relationships therapist? I think the piece around them just not being on board with the interdependence is much scarier. And so there I would say, if they are not on board, 2 things. 1, this is not the time to pause. I don't think women should put themselves in that position unless they feel protected and secure. If there's a gut instinct that says they are not, this would either be a time to maybe stay connected to part-time fractional work so you have some income available, or consider a post-nup agreement. We have a great template on the site that we did with Fair Play.
Love that.
Because I think we always think of post-nups or prenups as like a bet against our marriage, when in reality, especially in that case where there's something that you're not clear on and someone's going to make a shift that's bold, you want to feel secure just like you would if you were stepping into an organization or a client, right?
Sure.
We contract everything. Why not put that into place? If you haven't yet considered Fair Play, Fair Play was run by a colleague of mine, Eve Rodsky. We share a publisher. It's a great way to break down the tasks that actually go into caring for a home. And I think when we sort of put it out on the table, then there's a way in which to quantify, oh, this is how much this would cost. And it's not just the cost of the babysitter. It's like the family admin, the sitting on the phone with the insurance company, the planning and research for schools. All of that stuff is sort of laid out right there.
Yeah, that's so helpful. I think, yeah, it's interesting. My husband is on board, even though I'm still working, but constantly iterating on this because I think, there will be a time in the near future where I really take a pause and I have to be the one that needs to get on board. It's not that I'm like, want to be working all the time. It's more so receiving support is like an interesting thing for me.
Say more.
Support from my husband, being financially supported by him. Emotional, all of that I expect. But I was like, oh gosh, like I can lean on you. I can really lean. Felt scary.
It is scary. It is scary.
It's not scary
unless it's discussed in such great detail.
Yeah, you're so right. The detail.
Unless it's thought about methodically.
Yeah.
And there's sort of interim check-ins. I think so often we feel like these decisions are permanent.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is you can give yourself 6 months. The more uncomfortable something feels, I say shorten the window of reevaluation.
Love that.
Right? So it might be 6 months or 1 year. So you may say to your partner in a case of like a family that's not quite sure it feels right for them right now, the one partner isn't on board, you may say, let's take this in a 6-month trial.
Mm-hmm.
I even say that, by the way, when people are negotiating flexibilities and their manager isn't on board, say like, let's try this for 3 months. Because it reduces the burden on like, we're going to make this change and it's going to be forever and maybe it won't work.
Let's go to the workplace briefly because I think a lot of people are also intimidated by that conversation of like, what would it look like to take a pause or downshift how much they're working? Who are we talking to?
Yeah.
Are you leading the conversation? What does that look like?
So there's a few different types of resignations. I sort of chronicle them in the 3rd chapter because I think I failed at it. I think I handled it very badly.
Okay.
And by the way, I have a wonderful relationship with my past employers, but I did more of a throw up my hands, I'm done, I'm out. Like I did, it was just I went in. And I think the ideal, like best practice is that it's sort of a documented and discussed dialogue for a longer period of time.
Okay.
So like
a lot of people wait until like they're X amount of weeks or months pregnant.
Oh, so you're thinking about people who might so I want to correct one myth that is that people only pause after maternity leave. Some of the most common times to like fully pause, and I certainly experienced this, is any transition period. So certainly it could be after mat leave. It could be after a second child or a third child, right? So when you're adding multiples, and so it changes the cost of daycare often, or it changes, just their rhythms. Family relocations, a child at like 3rd grade, 4th grade, when there's diagnoses around academics, teens, like in mental health issues, and then college applications. So that year. So it's an interesting.
Okay.
So you see I would say this biggest spike is after that's had that second child.
I would think,
And so so to back up, if you are on maternity leave, we interviewed a number of HR experts for this, and I would say best practice is take that full maternity leave. You earned it. Like that is part of your benefit package. So take it. There's a couple different ways to resign on the other side of it, which might be go back and see how it feels if you're not fully certain. If you are certain, there's sort of like it's like a 2 to 4 week window. Now, if you are currently employed and you want to resign, or you just know you want more room for family, that's where the sort of 3-month window gives you time to talk to your manager about how might I make this more sustainable? Like what else could we do? And you might consider talking to other people who have flexibility in your organization, someone who has a similar role to you outside your organization, and borrow their template. I always say employers are not assholes, but they don't often want to do the additional work.
Sure.
And then essentially you want to, at the very least, you want to give them as much time to off ramp as possible, or like slide your work over to someone else, because it just buys you goodwill. It's called in the loop resignation model, which is like, I want to make this change for my family. Even if you're not considering I want to make this change for my flexibility, for my family life. How can I set you up for success? And then you're going to network on your way out, meaning that last 2 weeks, you're going to go out for coffee with your manager, with the executive assistant who like you have a really strong relationship with, anyone who you think like they could be my bridge back. Even if you don't think you're returning to that same company,
Sure.
it just reminds, I think it gives you a sense of dignity of, I've established this incredible network. These people, these relationships belong to me. They don't belong. Oftentimes people will leave Google. They'll be like, I've left Google. Who am I now? All of that skill and accomplishment and network still belongs to you. One other thing that I wish I had done was update my resume and LinkedIn on my way out, meaning that I'm like taking stock of all the wins and I'm like writing in great detail, like clients won or podcast hosted or whatever.
Sure.
You're writing it down because what happens, like it did for me, 10 years later, when you're going to write your resume, you're like, oh, I don't like really remember the details.
Totally. Yeah, I don't remember last week. So
I mean,
that
how
would be a
can
good idea.
you? So you're essentially dignifying that stage of life because what you want to do is you want to realize like, if you're a 10-year brand marketer, that did not go anywhere. You were still a 10-year brand marketer. And now you're on a career sabbatical where you're going to explore, you're certainly going to shift to focus on some other priorities, but you're also going to have room to grow too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's what people often are downplaying is the growth that happens when you do take that pause and when you are making more time for your family. What did that look like for you? What were you learning? What was just like sparking inside of you that you hadn't had before?
Yeah. I do think that's the biggest myth of parenthood, that like you're going to get stuck and you're going to feel like you're not growing. And I think the big shift, and that's why it's the second section of the book, but it starts with redefining what success is for you right now, because you've been on this path and you've had probably very measurable results, right? Like a promotion bump or a salary raise, and you've been told what success looks like. And then you're at home with a couple kids or one kid, whatever it is, and your days are sort of blank in front of you. And what happens very quickly, and I fell into this trap, which is like, I'm so in awe of this little person. And I'm so like also just full on, like trying to figure out the day to day and like just get from like, figure out how to do this, that very quickly you're just like, I guess success is like how smooth the day went with my kids or like how well behaved. And we all know that's like a recipe to feel like a failure, unless you give yourself some sort of way to measure your own growth. Because I know goals can feel really contrived, especially when you're in it, and goals dignify your time. Meaning they make you feel like, oh, when I look back on this time, I was moving myself too. And the way to do that, if you do nothing else, if you do not get this book, write in great detail who you want to be in 5 years. Like what your ideal day is, who you're spending time with, how your relationship with your partner feels, how the energy in your home feels, what you're working on, how you feel in your mind, how you feel in your body. And it's not like you're going to become that person tomorrow. I'm just thinking back to myself when I was writing this exercise with 2 kids, and I was really I had a hard time transitioning to 2. So for as much as I felt so at peace with 1, I was like brought to my knees the second time around. And, I did that exercise, and in it, I saw, oh, I have a personal goal right now to heal a lot of my reactivity. It's something that from like a personal growth perspective that I've left unchecked for a long time. From a professional perspective, I know I can't build this thing that I care so much about, but how can I like keep it moving? Can I write 3 posts a week about work and family? That's it. And on a family perspective, I had this vision because things were like so messy. And I was like, what do I want to look back? And I was like, it's going to be a silly house. We had these like dance parties every Monday. That was success in that chapter. And, the reason to write those down and to make it really measurable and small, right? So it was like for the reactivity, it was like listen to 1 podcast a week on women and anger and communication and emotion, right? That's it. And I can come back to this and see where I am and what direction it's leading me in. And I can, as my kids age into school, I'll expand this. But it did. It made me feel like I was still growing. And it allows you to feel like you are still, you're planting seeds for this next version.
Yeah. Yeah. Being able to measure it is such a great point, and I think is so human of us. It's kind of that need to like just track and kind of like a cause and effect type situation. Yeah, I'm curious because what I'm hearing you say, it's almost like treating, and I've kind of experimented with this, like it's treating your day to day as a mother, as someone who is just curating a home, managing the home. We are like the energy readers and orchestrators. We're so much. But it's almost bringing what you learned in more of a corporate setting and kind of bringing it in where it's like, I'm going to treat this very seriously, where it's like, I'm going to have like these certain measurements of success. I'm going to focus on my personal growth and my growth as a mother, as a partner, as a homemaker, as a cook, it's like bringing those aspects and just how valuable they are, within the home as well. And it's not to say that like you're running a business, but it's like there is an aspect that helps, I think, for a lot of women who are coming from that corporate background, like to embrace it even more, within a context that they're familiar with. And it's like you can also bring that to your family, obviously with more softness and, there's
silliness.
nuance.
Like, I think that's the part. You treat it seriously in that this is really important work.
Yes.
This stage of life isn't happening to you, right? You have ownership. This is enriching. And you get to have a little fun with it. You asked what sparked inside of me. I had so much ego for so long, wrapped up in what I could and couldn't do to be taken seriously. And then you realize, like, well, I've already checked my ego at the door, so I might as well experiment. And by the way, I went to my 5-year business school reunion and I heard someone say, oh, she has like a little mom blog now. And I remember thinking like, oh my God, like it's like everything I was fearful of. Yeah. And then I realized, but it's helping me grow. Like I know I'm getting to be creative in ways that I wouldn't have let myself before.
Yeah.
I am learning how to prioritize my day to make room for this. So like the way, and I think that's another thing to take seriously is we diminish women's projects so often, right? Like little Instagram thing, little blog, passion project, side hustle. And then women fear, like, especially if that's an avenue for growth or exploration when it's not making money, how do we then give ourselves permission to take it seriously? And I think that that's part of this too, is like, give yourself permission to take those things that let you feel whole and let you feel growing seriously, because otherwise you will regret this chapter. And that's what you don't want to do. You don't want to look back on these years that you consciously stepped into with so much care and intention and think like, oh, I like didn't grow because you didn't give yourself permission to take the things you wanted, truly wanted seriously.
Yeah, I think, the best thing that we can do for our kids and our family is allow ourselves to lean into things that really light us up,
We have a lot of guilt about that, though. That is actually of all the things, of all the pieces of this that I really struggled with, it was, if I wasn't making money, how could I prioritize my own care and wellness and things like creative pursuit, right? Because they sound so frivolous, but they're not.
No.
They kept me connected. Obviously, I can say this now, but it took learning, right? I think 1 in 3 women who are at home do not have a lick of help, including family assistance, which means they are parenting 24/7 without breaks.
Wow. That's a wild
All the research in the world will tell you that children don't need parents around the clock. They need parents who are healthy and supported and happy. right? And whether you're leaning on a partner, or whether you're creating a share in your neighborhood, whether you're leaning on the drop off at the gym, or you're able to invest in care, or you're outsourcing different parts like food prep to make that room. I think it takes understanding, going back to the household income being joint, that it isn't just an investment in you. It's an investment in the whole household. And care, in whatever shape it comes from, comes out of the joint household income. It is another line item. It isn't like next to your income.
For sure.
And I think that's like one of the big pieces. And I think understanding that this is a strategic chapter. It's also a sabbatical where you're allowing yourself to be available for your family and leaning into that. And you want to invest in your own growth to be able to return to work of meaning in a way that is stronger. That is a shift, because then you permit yourself going in to invest in care to allow yourself time.
Yeah.
Whether that's, 3 hours a week. And by the way, during periods I did not have paid help, my husband woke up every morning with those kids so that I could do 2 hours of writing in the morning.
Wow.
And I would, do my like half-assed exercise and all of that too,
The little band, on the legs.
Yeah. I mean, it was like at one point, I think I used like Bodhi's, like those balls, those like sensory balls. I was like between my knees. I was like, I think this is the same size as a Pilates ball.
I would love to talk about support and what that can look like. I think people, a lot of people, when they make the decision to be with the family full time, they think, I don't deserve support. I made this choice. I'm going to take it on.
Yeah.
I can do this. I was someone in the beginning who had to grapple with that a little bit, but now I'm like, the more help, the better. And we're in a very blessed position to be able to have help and support. But I guess, what did that look like for you? And what have you found to be investments that like pay in dividends, investments that you can shift some of your other spending to really invest in because it provides, space to pursue your creativity, space to connect with other moms, space to connect with your partner. So I think those things we just discount.
100%. So I had a very flawed relationship with help because I did not grow up with childcare.
Same.
And I think, and the irony of that is my mom was the first to be like, get all the childcare because then it'll let you enjoy parenthood.
Yeah.
And what was interesting was I looked at the sort of full-time nanny, and that didn't feel like it worked for me because I just don't like people in my head. Not because I didn't.
Yes.
I know myself. I take care of, like in the Uber, I feel sad for the Uber driver if I'm not talking the whole time. The poor guy is like, please stop talking. And I think I'm taking care of him. And so so that model didn't work for me in my head. And then I quickly found out that no help. So I will tell you, because I downshifted initially and I had part-time, it felt very clean. I had 2 days of a babysitter while I was 2 days out of the home. And then I had her come at 4:00 on Thursdays so that I could see a friend and have date night with my husband.
Nice.
So that started at about 6 months with him. And then that worked perfectly. And I let go of some of that when I was slowing down my part-time work. But then I had my second. And naturally, that babysitter was actually moving on anyways. I remember this was the hard part because I was so in my head about, well, I had this perfect version of balance, this like elusive balance, which we all know is like a myth because that suggests like this perfect equilibrium that can't exist.
Sure.
And I was looking and I could not, I got myself so wrapped around the numbers of like, how many hours am I spending with Bodhi? How many hours am I spending with the baby? I was at home that, it took cracking. And I talk about this in the book. It took like me trying to do it by myself and to, yelling. I was caught between like rocking the baby and like trying to entertain my 3-year-old outside. And I yelled at that poor little boy who came like looking for me while I was rocking the baby. And I thought, this isn't, when we measure presence not by how many exact hours we are, but how we show up in those moments. And that was the moment where I ended up getting a 4-day-a-week mother's helper. And that was perfect because she was able to cook and clean and keep herself like occupied or block and tackle with me. And that worked so well for that transition to 2. And then the pandemic hit and my husband ended up doing the mornings and we did it with, we figured out a system that worked.
Great.
And then it changed again when my kids aged into school and it became, okay, we need 3 afternoons of a babysitter. And then I dialed up my work and it became 4 and now it's 5 after school days, right? And the point being, it's not black or white. You're recalibrating over and over and over to your needs, not just work-wise, but emotionally and the transitions you're going to. And my husband, meanwhile, was the biggest proponent of help because he grew up with all the help. He grew up in New York. And so like he didn't understand why I was resisting. And I think that was a blessing because I interviewed a woman, Helen Ortiz, in that chapter. And she really talked about how, when she stepped into her pause, she really stepped into this mindset of, well, I'm doing this because I want to be with the kids, but I'm also a piggy bank of sorts, right? And so then she started being like, well, but then if I invest in help, how will that erode at my contribution? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, of course.
And that's a flawed mentality. But what they found, so she started trading off her therapy for, 5 hours of babysitting a week. And that actually convinced her husband, like, wait a second, I'm noticing that when we have babysitting, it's worth the investment because I feel the burden less when I come home. Our relationship, like the resentment is less between us. And then she noticed that between her first child and her second child who had this babysitter, even just one other loving adult in the home, had more sort of ease being around other people.
Yes.
And so you can start to see that she had to make that initial sort of argument and case, which I don't want women to have to do. But in her case, she was open to sharing this, that was what she needed to do to show our whole ecosystem benefits. And I interviewed Tova Klein, who you might know. She wrote Raising Resilience, and then she wrote How Toddlers Thrive before that. She said, kids don't just need one adult figure all the time. They need to know that they are safe and secure with a lot of loving adults. And I felt like I had that in the book because I wish someone had told me that.
I know.
Because it was just such a gift to and now I think it's why I am so happy to lean into every afternoon with Lauren because guess what? They come home funnier and sillier and they are able to express their independence more with her.
We can't be, everything to our one friend. They can't dump everything on us, or we can't be everything to our partner. We cannot be everything to our kids. Even though, I think I know best.
Yeah.
I can do it all.
Yeah.
Yes,
I can't. And I don't. I'm sort of fairly certain now that I don't know, but I'm really thinking about my kids would be. I never understood people who sent their kids to boarding school. But now I've been like, maybe those
it's so
people,
funny. I was talking about that.
Maybe those people actually have figured it out that their kids are, that you're like outsourcing their like most crucial years, the most challenging years to like trained professionals.
Totally.
Sometimes I'm like, I wish I was a trained professional.
Because I don't know about your experience, but at least at this stage, Mav's 19 months, like he feels obviously so comfortable with me. So he reserves all of his
all the good
stuff. Meltdowns, and, which is fine. It's this is what we do. But I notice, Nicole, our nanny, will come in and he's like, Coco. And
we're at him. Who's crying? Who's screaming? Not me.
But it's beautiful to build that mosaic of support that, provide different just colors and flavors for your children and for you to just, I think, thrive more, which makes you a better parent. I do want to talk about mom friends to wrap up. There's so much we could talk about, but I think mom friends, I've just been blown away. I honestly was overwhelmed at the thought of making new friends when I became a mom. I was like, I think I'm good. I'm overwhelmed. And then 100%. I just leaned into at least the local community in the beginning. And I was like, what can I pay you guys? Because this is insane. Just so supportive, so resourceful. Will do anything. Just that feeling of being in it together and not having to over-explain how you feel because it's just, for the most part, understood is just such a gift. What is the importance of building your community of mom friends?
I think hearing that, though, is like also what people need to know. Because one of the myths, besides that you're like going to lose your ambition and feminism and financial dignity and goals, is, oh, my network and interests are going to like dry up and shrivel in motherhood. And I think you can attest, and I can attest, and most mothers you speak to will attest, it is quite the opposite.
Yes.
Right? It may not be the professional network you've established like in the halls of the agency you work at or whatever, but it will be more deep and more diverse of connection than you could have ever imagined, right?
It's so much richer.
Because you're connected with this like invisible thread, right? Small talk is so easy because you're like, what pediatrician do you see? Or like, what play group are you joining? You know, nice diaper bag. And it goes from there to this other piece, which is like, we don't have time to bullshit. So it gets really deep rather quickly. And then these things that start as casual acquaintances because of repeat chance encounter, kind of like college, right? You're bumping into each other at a frat party, then at science class, then brushing your teeth in the hallway. Now you're doing that at the playground, play spaces, the pediatrician's office. And it's that same foundation to then start to build these connections that maybe aren't going to be forever. Right. And I think that's one of the things that makes us, we think that it needs to look a certain way, that it needs to be this like mom squad that's constantly texting, and we're going to be like frolicking in Jamaica with like our dads are on the grill and the kids are playing perfectly. There's different reasons. There's different seasons. All you really need, and the research shows, to like have like lower your cortisol is 1 hour with one other mom in the same stage of life. That's it.
Yes.
No qualifications, because it just normalizes what you're going through. But I think the other piece is, as we think about like what else can motherhood spark, these relationships are your network, because when and if you're thinking about that return, the number of stories I've collected of women who that's their lifeline back. Right? And or the spark for their next idea. So I'll use the example. There's this woman, Priscilla. Priscilla is outside of the Bay Area. She was like kind of an introvert, self-proclaimed, had moved to a new area. She was at a swim meet and she started talking, and she found a super connector, like someone who's always the host of everything. And she started saying yes to this woman. She goes to this woman's book club. She puts herself out there, another like key ingredient, right? Like not like crying in the corner, but she was like, I'm feeling a bit lost. Someone else said, me too. And they ended up setting up for 2 years, every Wednesday, a backyard burrito session where they would just be sounding boards for each other's professional lives and pursuits and interests. And now Priscilla is a tech writer based in Napa. Right. And I share that because like sometimes it's just that camaraderie that you need. And like just someone to pass the day, like to punctuate the day. And sometimes it's professional. And that's so wild that we can find such a rich resource in the women that we think are just the women we're seeing at the PTA.
This episode is brought to you by IQ Bar, our exclusive snack sponsor. IQ Bar is the better for you plant protein-based snacks made with brain-boosting nutrients to refuel, nourish, and satisfy hunger without the sugar crash. I brought a bunch of IQ bars with me the other day. I had a busy day. I had a few interviews. I had an event, and I just knew that I needed to make sure I was nourishing myself with food that I knew the ingredients were clean, were good for me, were great for my brain and my body, would satiate me, and were yummy. So I ended up having 2 IQ bars that day. I had one mid-morning and then mid-afternoon. It was just a great interim snack. So these are plant protein bars. I like getting my protein in any way that I can. High quality ingredients, like I mentioned, and it's totally free from gluten, dairy, soy, GMO, and artificial sweeteners. And they come in 9 delicious flavors. My favorite is the banana nut, always and forever, but they have flavors like chocolate chip and chocolate sea salt, toasted coconut chip, lemon blueberry, peanut butter chip. They do it right. They're so delicious, so chewy. You're going to love the texture. If you don't believe me, there's over 25,000 5-star reviews and counting. So just know that. They also have hydration mixes and mushroom coffees in addition to their brain and body boosting bars. And right now, IQ Bar is offering our special podcast listeners 20% off all IQ Bar products, plus get free shipping. To get your 20% off, text ALMOST, ALMOST, to 64,000. Text ALMOST to 64000. That's ALMOST to 64,000. Message and data rates may apply. See terms for details.
And I would think that, moms would be so much more willing and excited to help another mom. Like if they're saying, I think I'm ready to get back into the workforce, but I'm actually more interested in this. And they're like, yes. I feel like every time I jump in my various mom groups I'm in, there's just always that like momentum of like, yes, how can we support? Yes, I think I know this person.
Yes.
Let me connect you. Like there's just a willingness. There's not this sense of like competition that you might find in more professional networks or the politics of it. It's just like, no. Like, I want to help you. I want to support you, which was just so refreshing for me, just in this new season of life. And frankly, and I'm sure a lot of people experience this. I'm curious your experience, but like, I don't relate to my friends who don't have kids the same way. And it's okay. I had I had a moment, and then quickly I was like, oh, it's all good. Like we still have our common threads and we still love each other and we're witnessing each other in these different seasons. But it's okay if I lean more into my mom friends right now because it feels supportive and nourishing and all of that. Did you have kind of that shedding and fall off?
So my best friend from home doesn't have children.
Yeah.
We're a group of 8 of us. I mentioned, right? We grew up together. And, we probably did go through our ebbs and flows, but I held a different space for her, meaning I knew that she was valuable to me in a different way. And she's not the person I'm telling all my things about my kids to, right? I am conscious of that.
Sure.
And I think we as a group are conscious of that, of not making the entire dialogue about our marriages and our children. I think that she adds, like, we go to different people for different things. And I know what I go to her for.
Totally.
That deep understanding, that deep knowing, the humor, the sort of like carefreeness. I think the friction will often come from the boundaries. Right? I think that, and I'm feeling it. And if she's listening, I'm just saying this to reiterate to her, it is hard, I know, because when we go on a girls' trip, she of course wants to make it 4 days.
Yeah.
Whereas the rest of us are saying, well, how can we get as much togetherness into?
Yeah.
To be able to get home and like see our kids before bedtime. And that is, I would say that is the constant tug of war. But like we've talked about, I think that becomes your superpower in being able to advocate for your needs while still loving on the people you love.
Yeah, that's been Krista, my co-host, is one of my best friends, and she's in a different season of her life. And yeah, it's just been different around like what I have capacity for and what I'm available for at this point in my life. And she's been wonderful and just, witnessing that and supporting that. We also have the business relationship. So we have, logistics where with the book tour and everything like that. And I'm thinking about how long am I going to be away from my kid? It's just like the priorities are different, but I'm trying to be mindful of communicating as much as possible, saying like, I actually need like a few days to think about what's best. I don't want to make a decision based on like me feeling emotional right now. Like I want to just sit on it. So I find that over communicating with the people closest with you and these like little, sticky moments has been helpful. But I think that's what the beauty of friendship, you're going to move through these different seasons. And I now know that valuable friendships aren't always smooth. They do bring up those moments of growth for each person and reflection. And it's such a vehicle for your own growth and growth together. So if I have a friendship that's like super smooth, I'm like, okay, that's a category over here, but I know it's probably not my deepest.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting you say. I mean, I think that was that scene in White Lotus that everyone has reacted to.
I haven't seen it yet, but you can
Oh,
say.
okay,
You can
never
say. You
mind.
can say. No, you
No,
can
no.
totally say. Because I don't
Well,
know.
it was a moment at the sort of culmination of this very like we were all witnessing what seemed like such a toxic friendship, but in the end, it was a trio of women who we all say a lot of things behind each other. And it felt so toxic, and we're all watching it. And I think every woman watching it felt this like combination of guilt and fear of our existence in friendship.
Sure.
And then at the end, it was like there was this healing moment of just reflection of it can be both and. It can be so significant and have so much meaning because of time and love and like an underlying respect.
Yeah. This has been amazing. Thank you so much for being here. The book is The Power Pause. It's out now. How can people find you, your work? Are there book clubs? I feel like moms are creating book clubs, but I'm not exactly sure. But I think this would be really powerful.
Yeah, it is. You can follow me at Mother Untitled. You can subscribe to the newsletter, which I drop in every Sunday with a cheat sheet for the week ahead. There's so many free resources on Mother Untitled, and I encourage women to use them. You can get books wherever you love to get books. And there is a book club guide because one of the best things, and it's on the site as well, with like a fun playlist and, all the Amazon things to buy to make it special and like a little activity to sort of get past your titles. But I think one of the reasons why it's so powerful to do this in community and read it in community is because the last part of the book, I say, like, if I do this work right, when Lila, my daughter, grows up and someone says, was your mom a stay-at-home or working mom? She just won't have an answer for it because she won't know what that means. She'll just know I was whole. I cared about a lot of different things. I worked on things of meaning, but I was there. And I think that's the world we want to move women to, is that we are all more alike than we're different.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you on the next one. Bye. Thank you so much, Neha, for being here. You can get the book, The Power Pause, now, and you can get more resources at motheruntitled.com and Mother Untitled on Instagram. And thank you all for listening, for subscribing to Almost 30. We also have a clip show, Morning Microdose, that you can listen to and just get a little dose of Almost 30 5 days a week. This is kind of like the alternate start to your day. Instead of like scrolling on your phone, you can pop on a Morning Microdose episode, get a little dose of inspiration.
I love Morning Microdose. It's such a classic. Almost30.com, Almost 30 podcast on socials. We're on YouTube, baby. We got some video on YouTube for y'all to kind of cruise and see our faces this whole time.
Our bodies.
Say our bodies and our faces and judge us. Love you. We will see you soon. Bye.
Later.